And today we will talk about nested loops in Java. So you can use a loop within a loop. So far we have been working with a single loop, or we can add more loops, but they will all be separate. For example, we can add our first loop can be like this. So this is my first loop and this is my second loop. So now we have two loops here, two simple loops. So these are two loops, but they are separate with each other. They are not connected with each other. First, this loop will be executed. Then after it has done its work, it will come here and execute this loop. Same for while loop. We can have two while loops. Uh, let's have two while loops. While let's say I isn't equal to 0. So now we have one while loop. Similarly, we can have another while loop. So now we have two while loops, but they are separate from each other. They are not connected. These are completely separate statements. So before we begin this, let me show you one more thing. So as you know, we talked about if statements. Let's suppose I have a number. Let's say it is 0, and let's use an if statement. If num is, let's say, less than 0, right? Then inside this if statement, we can use another if statement. If num is greater than 100, or so as you can see, now we are using an if statement inside of another if statement. So if this statement is true, our program will check this statement. Similarly, we can connect an else statement. So now this is a full if else statement inside this if statement. Inside this if statement, we have a full if else statement. So the inner part will only be executed if the outer part is true. Similarly, loops work the same way. So let's do an example. Let's suppose we wanted to calculate factorial of first five numbers. So to calculate factorials, we can either use a loop five times. We can use this loop five times. First approach is this. So let's take it from the user and enter a number. So now we are taking an input from the user. So now we have we will take our input will be enter the range. So enter the range. So we will take a range from the user. So in that range, we will calculate factorials of all numbers. So suppose user enters 5, we will calculate factorials from 1 to 5. So similarly, if the user enters 8, we will calculate factorials of all numbers from 1 to 8. So first approach is this by using for loops. In that case, we have to use so this is our first for loop. So inside it, we will calculate the factorial. Right, then we can after this loop has been executed, we can print that fact is plus f, whatever will be the value of f, and after that we will have to reset the value of f back to 1 since we will use it for our next loop. So similarly, we can use the loop again. So here our n will be replaced by value, so we have to replace it by 1 first, then we have to replace it by 2. Since n can be any range, we need to know how long we need to keep the loop executing. So we are not sure about the values of n. So that's why we will use a loop within a loop. So our first loop will be I is equal to 0. 1. Our first loop will iterate through all the numbers we want to calculate. So let's make a loop like this. So this is our loop. So as you can see, it runs from 1 to n. So if the user enters 5, it will run 5 times. First for I is equal to 1, then I is equal to 2, then I is equal to 3, 4 and 5. So it will run 5 times. It's a loop which runs 5 times. So let's try testing it so you can really see what's going on. So let's print the value of I. So here, let's run it. Let's enter 6. So as you can see, it is printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is running 6 times, which is the value of n. So now we are running a loop 6 times. Or suppose user enters 10, we will run it 10 times. So as you can see, 1 to 10 is getting printed. So now we are running loop n number of times. So this will be our first loop. Inside that loop, we need another loop which calculates the factorial of each I. So for each I, we need to calculate this. Uh, for each I, we need to calculate factorial. So if I is 1, we need to calculate factorial of 1. If I is 2, we need to calculate factorial of 2 and up to so on. If I is 5, we need to calculate factorial of uh, that 5. So whatever user will enter, we will have to calculate factorial of it. So let's give j value of uh, I, since our starting value in a factorial is this. So our factorial, let me have a simple loop for like this. So if the user enters n, our factorial will start from n. Here n is the number whose factorial we need to calculate. So I will go up to 1, and in each iteration I will decrement. So this is how a normal factorial loop looks like. So that's here our n is I, our number which we have to calculate factorial for is I. So that's why we are initializing it to I. So if our I is 1, it will start from 1 and it will go up to 1. So our factorial, as I have explained in my previous videos, that in factorial we go downward. So like factorial of let's say factorial of n is n multiply n minus 1 multiply n minus 2 and up to 1. So you need to multiply all these numbers in this range. Like factorial of 5 will be 5 multiply 4 multiply 3 multiply 2 multiply 1. So this is how a factorial looks like. So we will starting from 1. So suppose if I is 5, so we will start from 5 and we will go up to 1. So this is our second loop, and then in each iteration we will decrement the value of j, since j is our counter variable. So now we need to add body of this loop. So inside it, so this is the full body of our outer loop and this is the body of our inner loop. So in this loop we have to calculate the value of f. We have to multiply f with I repeatedly, sorry j here, since our looping variable is j. If you write I, you are going to end up multiplying this value. We need this value of this loop. So that's why we are multiplying with j. Then after f is calculated, we will print that factorial of I, since I is our n by for now, is, then we have to write the value of f. So now after this loop has done executing, this statement will execute, and then we have to reset the value of f. Since it was a 1 initially, we have to set it back to 1. So then after executing this statement, it will go to the top of the loop again and it will run its next iteration. So let's try running our program, see if it works. So it is asking for a range. I am saying 5. So now as you can see, it is calculating the factorial of 1 to 5. So first it comes here, it checks, it initializes I to 1, then it checks that I is less than equal to n. Yes, that's true. I is less than equal to 1. Then it comes into this loop. After then it comes into this loop. Here it checks that it first initializes the j. So the value of j will be a value of I. For our first iteration, it will be 1. Then it will see whether j is greater than equal to 1. So j is equal to 1, therefore it will execute this statement, that is f is equal to f times j. So initially f was 1 and j is 1 now, so 1 times 1 equal 1. So value of f is 1 now. Then it will do the decrement, so now j becomes 0, since uh, 0 minus 1 equals, sorry, 1 minus 1 equals 0. So then it will again check this condition. It will see that j is greater than equal to 1. No, it's not true, since j is 0 now. Therefore, it will exit this loop. It will print that factorial of 1 is 1. And then it will reset the value of f back to 1. Then again it will come here and it will do the increment part. Now the value of I is 2. It will check that I is less than equal to n. Yes, I is 2 is less than 5. 2 is less than 5. And then it will come into this loop. Now we are initializing j to I. So now it will set the value of j to 2, since our I is 2. Then it will check this condition, that is j is greater than equal to 1. That's true. 2 is greater than 1. Then it will multiply value of f, that was 1, with j. So 1 times 2 equals 2. So factorial of, as you can see, factorial of 2 is 2 times 1, like this. So it will first multiply. It will see that now f is 2. Then it will do the decrement. Now the value of j is 1, since 2 minus 1 equals 1. Then it will again checks the condition that j is equal to 1, that 1 is equal to 1. That's true. It will again multiply value of f with j. So now our j is 1 and f was 2. So 2 times 1 equals 2 again. Then it will decrement. Then value of j becomes 0. It will check the condition, that is j greater than equal to 1. No, that's false. 0 is not greater than or equal to 1. So this statement is false. Now it will exit. It will print that factorial of 2 is 2. Then it will set the value of f to 1. That f will become 1. So as you can see, we need to reset the value of 1, since each time we start from, we multiply it by 1 to get the correct result. Next iteration will run from 1. Next iteration I will be 3, and our j will start from 3 also, since it's the value of 3. And this calculation will carry on. You can dry run it yourself, but that's how you calculate it. Let's try running it one more. Suppose you want to calculate factorial of first 10 numbers. So as you can see, now we have calculated factorials of 1 to 10. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching.